What's good, everyone? Today on Dizzy One's Switch Reel, we're taking a step back from all those intense platformers, taking a little break from all those ghoulish Lovecraftian horror games to bring you 5 of the absolute coziest, most soothing Japanese RPGs available for the Nintendo Switch. These are 5 titles that are gonna make you want to get into your favorite jammies with some marshmallowed hot cocoa. Like we're talking about, we're gonna be doing some pretty serious hardcore chilling and relaxing. If you turn on one of these titles and you're not in the mood to relax and chill, then I'm not really sure what to tell you, dude. These titles aren't going to contain insane amounts of gore. Most of them will be pretty chilled out with the plot line. Like, you're not going to be summoning any demons in these games, at least that I know of. If in fact you do find a way to summon demons in any of the games, do go ahead and let me know down there in the comments. So do keep in mind, these are 5 of my favorite cozy Japanese RPGs for the Nintendo Switch. Like, my opinion, obviously, I made the video, right? This video goes in order from least cozy to number 1 closey. So without further ado, let's take a look at the 5 coziest Japanese RPGs for the Nintendo Switch. Number 5. Collection of Saga Final Fantasy Legend. Collection of Saga contains all 3 of the Final Fantasy Legend Game Boy titles released here in the West, from 1989 with the first entry, 1990 for Final Fantasy Legends 2, then 3 years later in 1993 we finally got Final Fantasy Legends 3 here in the West. These are not new games, and they've aged alright. I mean, they're pretty old school looking and they're monochrome because they were released for the Game Boy. Like, not the Nintendo DS, not the Game Boy Advance, not even the Game Boy Color. These came out on the original ass Game Boy. So make sure you're into the really old school stuff before you go poking around with Collection of Saga. However, really into the old school stuff I am. I mean, some of us played Pokemon on the Grey Behemoth OG Game Boy and have a really deep connection to the device. I remember buying the first Final Fantasy Legend for the Game Boy when I was like maybe 8, not knowing at the time what is a JRPG or how to play one successfully, and boy, took our little Dizzy One into some sort of fantastical MMA octagon to be beaten senseless by monsters, mythical beings, and legendary beasts. The games contained in this collection have some pretty crazy dualism going on for me, in that it's so incredibly nostalgic while being absolutely cold and misanthropic, dare I say infuriating in terms of gameplay and how forgiving in difficulty they can get. Grinding won't really level you up in the sense we're used to for Final Fantasy Legend 1 and 2, like as far as killing enemies and getting experience points. Rather, you upgrade by using the money you gain from downed enemies to level up the human characters. The monsters change into new monsters by eating the meat from downed enemies, and mutants are pretty unpredictable altogether. Like, random as... You get to customize your party with any combination of the available character classes. Some skeletons up in there, some albatrosses. Final Fantasy Legend 2 also introduces robots as playable classes. Whichever party combination you choose, Final Fantasy Legend 1 and 2 are going to get pretty frustrating pretty quick, unless you exploit the game's many flaws and glitches in your favor. 3, however, breaks this mold and seems to have learned from the first 2 in several ways, including incorporating a leveling up system with experience points, a robot as an available character class, as well as an intense yet kind of soothing intriguing plot which involves you traveling on an interdimensional journey where you'll set foot on several different planes of existence. That's why this collection of Saga Final Fantasy Legend comes in dead last on this list. Granted, the games are absolutely loaded with childhood nostalgia. I mean, I personally love the Game Boy sound system, and all three of them have really awesome soundtracks in my opinion. They all have a pretty laid-back atmosphere, but compared to the other games on this list, they'll probably get your heart rate going really fast and have you shoving fistfuls of cash into your swear jar before you get too far along in any of them. Number 4. Nier Automata. Nier Automata builds a dense, dreamlike, melancholy world. Then it pulls you right in to experience it vividly the second you load up the game. The music, coupled with the fluid combat system, including dual upgradable melee weapons, to ensure that the act of killing enemies in the game itself becomes meditative, it lulls you deeper and deeper into your couch. Personally, I would put this maybe at number 2 on this list, but really if we look at it logically in terms of this video, Nier Automata can get pretty violent at times, like there's some really cool blood sprays and fatalities in the game, and it also gets kinda sad and philosophically tense at several points along your journey as 2B, a sort of cyborg android who is a member of the militant Yorha Earth Defense Force. Yorha are at war with machines whose creators seem to have disappeared altogether. However, some of the machines, after many hundreds of years, have now developed complex, almost human emotions and behavior, and the game ensures that you find yourself morally conflicted, if not incredibly relaxed. The protagonists in Nier Automata, namely 2B and 9S, have disposable bodies which can be replaced as long as your memories are backed up within the Yorha information systems. The enemies in Nier Automata vary from garbage can-sized enemies, which get demolished rather easily, with sizes reaching vast mechanical behemoths which harken back to the massive stone gods of Shadow of the Colossus for the PlayStation 2. On your first playthrough, you play as the iconic 2B, designed by Akihiko Yoshida, the character designer for Vagrant Story for the original-ass PlayStation, Bravely Default, and Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age. Oh my god! Then, on the second playthrough, you play as 9S, your assigned male companion who accompanies you along much of the game. The two playthroughs serve to give you the entire story, which will give you an action-heavy, tragic, yet most importantly, you guys, cozy experience you'll likely never forget. Number 3. Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition. Chrono Cross is a JRPG in a league of its own altogether and is perhaps just as divisive as it is soothing in its gameplay, watercolor visual presentation, and cast of tons of characters, many of which are recruitable into your main party so that you can easily utilize their unique skills to diversify the skills of your party. It's kind of a spiritual successor to perhaps the greatest JRPG of all time. Let's not get ourselves the glorious Chrono Trigger released for the Super Nintendo in 1995. However, it's really not accurate at all to call it a direct sequel. There are many parallels and many hints of some crossover between Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger, but with many of the details you'll have to make up your own mind as far as what's going on. This is a turn-based combat game. I don't think I can actually fully articulate what the hell is going on with the battle system, but basically you have a field color thing, and each character has a base color. Pretty sure performing a move of a color of character you want to boost during the fight makes the field effect of that color benefit that character's move during that fight. Wait, what? There's also some pretty emotionally heavy moments in this one. It gets pretty complex in its plot line. As opposed to traveling in time like Chrono Trigger, you rather switch between some kind of different dimensions, full of quirky, memorable, and at times endearingly annoying characters. Let's not beat around the bush, we all know who did the music for Chrono Cross. It was composed by the legendary keyboard Chad, Yasunori Mitsuda. The music blends with the pleasant scenery and laid-back style of the game and endlessly lulls you into a deep state of relaxation. As it turns out, the game is so good at making people relaxed, there was a time that the CIA actually set up a secret task force wherein agents would interrogate suspected spies and terrorists by playing Chrono Cross in front of them for hours on end, forcing their suspects into a suggestive state so that they would be more likely to give out vital information after being questioned. I'm just kidding. There was no CIA Chrono Cross operation. That'd be cool though. Number 2. Collection of mana. Alrighty folks, we're reaching critical levels of comfort now because the Collection of Mana, released in 2019 by Square Enix, has 3 of the most relaxing, soothing, and cozy games I've ever come across. Let's pick them apart in order. So first up, we got Final Fantasy Adventure, don't let the name fool ya. Released 1991 initially, also known as Seiken Densetsu. Final Fantasy Adventure in Japan, it's kind of like the Game Boy Zelda Link's Awakening in some ways, like it's an isometric adventure quest with swords. At the beginning, it tosses you right into a fight with what looks like the Rancor from the Star Wars films, in a soothing kind of way. Just to note, this isn't really a Final Fantasy game, much in the same way Final Fantasy Legends isn't. Odd, right? They used the successful franchise titles as more Westerners already had a familiarity with those titles and a fondness for them. Next in the Collection of Mana, we got Secret of Mana. I don't even know if this action fantasy JRPG classic needs any kind of introduction. Like, giving it an introduction would be blasphemous, I feel. Like on the same level as like unclogging your toilet with a Bible or something, I guess. But it's a pretty wholesome game, visually pleasing, and uncompromisingly cozy in its gameplay and plot. It's also that same kind of isometric top-down view, but instead of controlling a single hero as we do in Final Fantasy Adventure, we will eventually control 3 heroes who we can toggle between as your main character in real time. We have the main male protagonist who's gonna chop down all the adorable rabbites and all the other cute enemies, and then we got the female protagonist and then also a pixie. You're gonna utilize each character to progress using a ring menu, real-time combat, and one of the best soundtracks to any game ever. Composed by Hiroki Kikuta, it really is one of the most immersive soundtracks, and it fits the game like a glove. For the last game in Collection of Mana, we've got Trials of Mana. This is a remake with many upgrades to both the graphics and gameplay, never before available in the West until this release. Like, why? This version of Trials of Mana is a remake, but it's still got that awesome pixel aesthetic, and the same homeboy who did the music for Secret of Mana, Hiroki Kikuta himself. Hell yeah! Trials of Mana takes everything that Secret of Mana did right, and then combines it with a sleepy, tranquil fantasy plot, which is sure to get you feeling like you're wrapped in a warm blanket of a chill JRPG, where we will again have 3 characters. However, in Trials of Mana, you have the option to pick any of the 6 characters. Each of them have a pretty fleshed out plot which will intertwine with the plot of whichever main character you have selected. Bottom line, any of these mana games is sure to give you a cozy run for your money. In fact, in several countries, it's actually illegal to play any of the mana games while operating a motor vehicle due to the staggering amount of fatalities this has caused worldwide. I'm just kidding again. There's no big statistic of Collection of Mana fatalities that you can look up. That'd be funny though. Number 1. Trials of Mana. You heard that right. Alright everyone, just go ahead and get as comfortable as you've ever been in your life. Good God, this is Trials of Mana. No, I'm not senile at my relatively young age. I realized Trials of Mana was one of the games in number 4 right before this one. This Trials of Mana is actually a remake, a whole new version of the regular Trials of Mana. What's different? How dare you ask me something like that? This one is 3D, powered by the Unreal Engine, fully voice acted, rebuilt from the ground up with stunning graphical detail, which is nothing short of immersive. Shit. Hiroki Kikuta's soundtrack is intensely memorable and nostalgic, even if you've never played the game before. That dude really knows how to make a tune, and without his original soundtrack, this game simply would not be the same. If you're a nerd like me, you'll play the pixel version of Trials of Mana, and then you'll really get smacked with how cool this version is, and I can't say I have a favorite version of this masterpiece that is Trials of Mana, but I chose this one to be crowned the king of this list due to its incredible immersiveness, making you feel like you're floating around on your couch to spectate the stories. The action in this one feels satisfying as you womp on more adorable rabbites and vicious bosses with a third-person perspective on your character, which you're also able to spin the camera around with the right stick. All the characters are recreated in vivid, lifelike, kinda cel-shaded looking-ish anime world. One thing that's purely my opinion is that the English version of the dialogue gets really abrasive, so I switch them to Japanese. Not that this is a cure-all to the abrasiveness, however, so tinker with the audio language to see which one carries less abrasiveness for you. I wish I could just leave Charlotte's voice on English, however, because I get a kick out of any character who struggles to pronounce their R's.
A white, huh? It could be dangerous. I can't let Heath face it alone.
Nothing short of epic, awesome, or cozy, Trials of Mana is one of my absolute favorite cozy games available for the Nintendo Switch. You know what, guys. Thanks for watching. What are some of your favorite coziest games for the Nintendo Switch? Do you agree with any of the games on this list in terms of coziness? Let me know down there in the comments. You know the drill. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and then go ahead and hit the thumbs up if you liked it. And then I'm Dizzy1, and you guys, what were you? You guys are the best. Blah.